Throughout the years, we've experienced many ridiculous Fire Emblem leaks, a handful of which I've actually covered on this channel. Vampire Emblem, Pirate Emblem, the list goes on. And honestly, sometimes it can actually be fun to consider these leaks, or at least purely speculate or envision what we'd like to see in an upcoming Fire Emblem game. Check out my top 10 hopes and desires for Fire Emblem Switch video from way back in the day as an example. Especially in this recent post-Three Houses era, where that game has already been out for almost 3 years at the time of this recording. Can you honestly believe that? Fan speculation and rumors are at an all-time high. So naturally, in recent days, we've received another such leak. I wasn't sure if I wanted to cover it, to be honest, but some of you out there did ask me to share my thoughts on it, and after taking a closer look with more of an analytical eye, I actually think it's a lot more compelling of a leak than we typically get. So I've decided to today. On the Famaboards forum, a forum dedicated to gaming news and gossip, Emily Rogers, a fairly well-known insider who in the past was actually the first to leak information about the Nintendo Switch console, provided this information. Upcoming Fire Emblem game is a new game, not a remake, brand new story. It's a collaboration once again between Intelligent Systems, Koei, and Gust, which is a division of Koei Tecmo Holdings. Gust heavily assisted with the visuals and graphics. Graphics are an improvement over Three Houses, hopefully. But Three Hopes, you've already seen some improvement too, so clearly it's possible, even with just Koei. Originally intended as an anniversary game to celebrate Fire Emblem's 30th anniversary. Makes sense, kind of. The game has been finished for over a year. Main character, Main Lord, has strange red and blue hair. His mother is a dragon. This is not so far-fetched from Fire Emblem, but I feel like anybody could say that or make that up. I mean, that one's pretty easy. New Emblems gimmick allows players to summon Fire Emblem characters from the past for your squad. That, absolutely makes sense, but I feel like you could make that up pretty easily as well. It might be one of the first things people think of, but honestly, that does sound like something we would get, because every Fire Emblem game, I feel like they still want to have that representation somehow from, Marth or Ike or somebody, especially for, the more casual people that only know the characters from, Smash and stuff. Before long, Reddit user Miasmadelta added to this rumor by confirming it and providing a few screenshots that also seem to align with some of Emily's initial information. This time, though, we're greeted with a female main protagonist, but sporting the same split red and blue hair color mentioned in Emily's leak. The character that fans have now dubbed Toothpaste Chan.
Crests are to blame.
Crests are to blame.
Toothpaste Chan.
Toothpaste Chan. Toothpaste Chan. Instead of this invalidating Emily's information, though, it seems much more likely, and would even make more sense, that the protagonist's gender could once again be chosen, much like Shez, Byleth, Corrin, and others before them. It honestly fits. A front shot of this character was also leaked outside of Miasma's post, further tying these rumors together. It should be noted that the text of the menus and the character names in these leaked screenshots is in Chinese, which would be unusual for Intelligent Systems and Koei Tecmo to begin development in a language other than Japanese. However, Koei Tecmo does have a game development support division in China, and if they were doing the majority of the work on this game, as they probably are, it could make sense for the game to be in Chinese, especially at the early point of these screenshots. While at first seeming unusual, the main character's name being 8 W's in these screenshots could also be developers testing for text overflow within game text boxes. This way they allow the player to name themselves whatever they want, up to 8 characters, and they've checked that doing so doesn't go outside the chat box or mess up anything throughout the game's dialogue. The idea that the game has been completed for a while would also make a lot of sense. Here's why. It's already been almost 3 years since the release of Fire Emblem Three Houses, and we know from developer interviews that a lot of that game's development rested on the shoulders of Koei Tecmo, as has Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes. Three Houses was a collaborative effort, of course, but they made it seem very much like the normal team behind Fire Emblem at Intelligent Systems were not the main team involved with it, which would mean in that case that the last game heavily focused on by the main team would have likely been Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, the Gaiden remake which released in 2017. So whatever the normal team has been up to, they've now had 5+ years to develop their project. Many of us speculated that we'd see a remake of the fourth Fire Emblem, Genealogy of the Holy War, in 2021, considering it's the next game in line to receive a remake chronologically, and 2021 was the game's 25th anniversary, much as Echoes had been released right on schedule in honor of Gaiden's 25th anniversary in 2017. And once again, attached to this leak, like others have speculated throughout the past few years, we received more information nodding to the fact that a Genealogy remake will be coming eventually. It does, however, seem a little extra at this point to also be throwing that into this leak, which could also be kind of a stretch or butt pull to make this leak appear even more legitimate. Keep in mind that some leakers also like to include fake information along with real information, either to obscure the source of the leak or to troll others and get a reaction, so that's always possible with this information as well. However, if this game was once again heavily developed by Koei Tecmo and their subdivision Gust, that would once again imply that Intelligent Systems may have had a more hands-off role with it. So where were they? Maybe they needed time to adapt to development on the Switch hardware after wrapping up with Fire Emblem Echoes on the 3DS. And maybe they've focused on the supposed Genealogy remake and have been more intent on keeping that project in-house. It's just pure speculation, but I think that could make sense. They may have needed a handful of years to get back up to speed on a new platform, and during Heroes' success and Fire Emblem doing well overall, they would have missed some golden years to drop games had they not partnered with Koei. Perhaps it's also possible that some of these games were ready for launch much earlier, but events like the pandemic either delayed them or caused Intelligent Systems to alter their original release schedule plans. At this point, it would make sense, at least to me, that we wouldn't see a main series Fire Emblem game in 2022, considering we got the announcement and release of Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. While this game is a spin-off title, and its battle system is massively different from the main series, more than ever, it has a lot of connections and new lore related to the main series that a lot of fans will be interested in, especially those who are fans of Three Houses. And I'm sure that Intelligent Systems wouldn't want to cannibalize on the sales of Three Hopes by releasing a main series Fire Emblem title in the same year. Let's also remember that we were supposed to receive the Advance Wars remake this year too, which was under Intelligent Systems' umbrella, but developed by WayForward, but that ultimately didn't happen due to ongoing world events. So Three Hopes and Advance Wars could have been slated to fill this year, and maybe they were saving whatever this leak is for the following year. Some fans believe that if they truly were far along in development, we would have heard something about this game by now, as we did years before with Three Houses, which was first announced in January 2017, E3 trailered in 2018, and then released in mid-2019. But I don't find this to be quite as convincing of a point against it as some of those folks seem to think. With Fire Emblem Echoes, that game was both announced and launched within a 6-month period of time, and a very similar scenario just happened with Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. And like I said before, with COVID delays and not wanting to cannibalize the sales of other titles, perhaps they've just opted to be quiet about it for now. If people knew that we were getting another main series game in the near future or next year, would they be less inclined to buy Warriors 3 Hopes since it's a spin-off? Maybe. Graphically, the characters look pretty different than what we're used to. Now, Fire Emblem has never stuck with a particular art style for too long. In fact, that's part of the charm of the series, as it constantly reinvents itself across different games and platforms. But this time the characters look even more outside the realm of normalcy. The leak supposes that Gust heavily assisted with the visuals of this supposed game, which could explain its extremely different art style, the likes of which we've never seen before in a main series Fire Emblem game. Gust is the developer responsible for games like the Atelier series and Knights of Azure, which you'll notice that this character from seems to be wearing a pretty darn similar styled outfit as the new protagonist. So perhaps this explains it. I guess it'll take some getting used to. But now let's note a few further details that we can glean from these screenshots. We can see lamps in the lobby here in this image, indicating that we may be looking at a different time period or setting with further advances in technology in this world. The banner at the bottom of the screen supposedly labels the current time as day, indicating that this game's base camp might feature a day and night cycle, which could affect character interactions or activities that take place, something that we've never seen before. The crest/emblem wielder's ring could be tied to the system of summoning protagonists from other games, perhaps even through the use of amiibo. And I wonder if that ring could also include this game's version of Milla's Turnwheel and Divine Pulse, granting the player the ability to undo moves on the battlefield. It would certainly fit. Preparations could entail plenty of pretty typical things here. We've seen other similar menu options like in Path of Radiance, which awarded EXP and managed skills, so who knows at this point. but I suppose it could also have to do with some new systems. It is separate from equipment here, so equipment will likely still deal with inventories and the convoy. Companions looks to be the support conversation menu and could also contain character info. We get a glimpse of this menu from the other screenshots. Base camp intel is also new here, and once again, it reminds me a bit of the info menu at camp in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Perhaps this is where information will be shared regarding camp and your characters through dialogue. These two characters talking are supposedly Vandelay and Mobu. Vandelay looks like the typical Jagan archetype character, usually an older cavalier or paladin that begins the game levels above your other units and can help you out in some tight spots. Judging by this brief conversation, Mobu might have joined the army from elsewhere, as they're discussing him being taken in. The support screen shows Anna, which would be pretty typical for her to be included again in this game, as she's a recurring reference across the series and has been playable in the more recent games. And this time, it even looks like she would have more support conversations, as we can see her in Mobu's list of supports. She looks to be wielding an axe here, so I wonder if she's a brigand or thieves are using axes again, akin to Gaiden. We get to see this Abby character in both screens too, as both a sprite, which looks like some kind of Wyvern Rider class, and also as a small portrait where she's got something obscuring her face. Overall, I'd say the quality of the sprites here is really good. They look solid and honestly would have been a lot of work to fake. If someone was faking it, they'd probably look a bit jankier as well, or less about right looking, but they do look quite good. The portraits do look about right as well, even if the new art style is considerably different. I will say that the background of the support between Vandelay and Mobu does leave a lot to be desired, but if this is real, hopefully it's just an early placeholder background. I do think it's interesting that there's no concrete information about kingdom names or plot details that have been revealed with this leak. It's as generic as information can get. Unless at this point in development, those aspects of the story were still being worked on and hadn't been settled yet, thus were not in these screens and couldn't have been included in this leak. They may already know which kingdom is evil, but who knows what the name of the evil kingdom is going to be yet, right? Those types of decisions can be handled way later. With Thanabomb's Three Houses leak that was later proven to be true, we also didn't get too many plot-related specifics, so in some ways you could also give this leak a pass in that regard. So that's it for now. What do you think? Is this real? Is it fake? If this was a glimpse at an early build of the next main series game, would you be excited based on what you've seen? What do you want to see in the next main series Fire Emblem game? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you haven't checked out my Should You Buy 3 Hopes video, be sure to do so, as it also includes my thoughts and review of the graphics, gameplay, and other aspects of that game from my demo experience. Thanks to all our amazing patrons for supporting the channel and helping to make content like this possible. Stay tuned for my streams when 3 Hopes launches later this week. Be sure to join the Discord to talk more beyond this video. Follow us on Twitter for any new other information, and I'll see you all next time. The lighting effects have been considerably upgraded. Many backgrounds during conversations that were once static images are now seemingly fully 3D, giving a much better sense of scale and depth. Comparing Three Houses scenes to 3 Hopes is a pretty big difference. It feels like it's finally looking the way it was always meant to. In terms of character models, there are certainly plenty of new ones.